I just get the impression that maybe they're still in the market for a forward player.
Zinchenko, do we expect that one to happen maybe this week?
I think so. Yeah, that we don't foresee any problems with that one. It's a £30 million deal. It will represent the second signing that Arsenal would have made from Manchester City. And it's easy to see why, isn't it? Because Mikel Arteta, of course, was number 2 to Pep Guardiola, and Gabriel Jesus, number 1, and Zinchenko would have both played under Arteta. And so Arteta knows them very well. They'll know him very well. They'll know what will be required of those players. And I think it's a very astute signing as well for Arsenal, because he's very versatile as Zinchenko. He can play at left back, which, if truth be told, kind of became a problem position for Arsenal last season. Yes, they had Kieran Tierney, and when he was playing, all was fine. But when he got injured, Nuno Tavares came in, and he was a little bit hit and miss by all accounts, to the point where Arteta sometimes used one of his midfielders in that wing back or that left back role. So I think he wants to bring in somebody like Zinchenko, who is very familiar with the left back position and who can hit the ground running under what Arteta's philosophy is. But also, I think a lot of people, myself included, were very impressed with Zinchenko when he played in central midfield for Ukraine in the World Cup qualifying playoffs against Scotland and Wales. And I think Arteta would have looked at that and thought, you know what, that's a position that he could fill at Arsenal as well.
Does that potentially end interest in Yuri Tielemans, do you think? The fact that Zinchenko can sort of fill that midfield role?
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. I think because he's been predominantly used as a left back as Zinchenko, I think Arteta would have looked at it and thought, I had issues in that area when Tierney was injured, so I can use him in various positions. But if a player like Tielemans was to become available, and there has been long-standing links with Arsenal, this was even before he entered the final year of his contract, which he is now, if they can wait till towards the end of the window and Tielemans hasn't extended his contract at Leicester, that potentially could be, not just Arsenal, that potentially could be a big player that could move late in the window, because the information we're getting at the moment is that Tielemans is going to have talks with Brendan Rodgers about his future. Now, whether Leicester City will allow him to see out the remainder of his contract and stay at Leicester, or whether they'll cash in now, that will be a question for the Leicester hierarchy. But it is an issue for them, no doubt about it. If he doesn't sign a new contract, then they're going to have to contemplate trying to cash in this transfer window.
Which positions do you expect Arsenal to look at after Zinchenko? Because obviously, there's been links with Rafinha, Lisandro Martinez before. Are those maybe two positions they may still be looking at?
Well, I think the Lisandro Martinez one, obviously he's going to be a Manchester United player as of next season. I don't think that we wanted to fill that position anymore simply because they brought in Zinchenko. I think the priority was with Zinchenko was left back or midfield. So, with Lisandro Martinez would have been in a left back area, because if you think about, they've got Ben White and Gabriel in the center of defense, and now William Saliba has returned from his loan spell where he impressed out in Ligue 1. So he'll be coming back to fight for a place in central defense. So I think Lisandro Martinez, if he had joined Arsenal, would have been used more in the full back or a holding midfield position. So I think maybe that area has now been filled with Zinchenko. I just get the impression that maybe they're still in the market for a forward player, because if they were willing to outlay, in excess of £50 million for Rafinha, it's obvious to think that position is a priority area for Arsenal. So if they're looking at Rafinha, maybe they've got somebody else in mind in that right wing area to bring in. And so it could be another big money, big name signing for Arsenal. Yeah, there's still plenty of time left in this transfer window. And I think all of this business that Arsenal are doing, particularly last summer and this summer, just highlights how much they're backing Mikel Arteta. He's the long-term project for them. They're backing him all the way. They didn't have European football last season, and yet they spent more than any club in Europe in the transfer window, in excess of £140 million. Once the Zinchenko deal goes through, I think they'll almost be at that level again for this summer with 5 or 6 weeks to go of the window. And if they were to buy another player, I mean, they'd beat last year's record, if you like, with regard to summer spend. And if they were to spend that much on a right-sided player that they were willing to spend on Rafinha, then you're looking at a summer spend of close to £200 million. And some of these players that Arsenal are buying, they're very, very young. And that tells its own story, because it's telling Mikel Arteta he wants to build something. And so if they don't hit the ground running, and they've got such a young squad of Arsenal, if they don't hit the ground running, I don't think that would put any pressure on Arteta in his position, simply because everyone in the hierarchy at Arsenal is thinking on the same page to say, right, we're going to build this squad. It might take a little bit of time. They've brought in another 19-year-old in Marquinhos, who they'll hope to blood into the squad this season as well. So I think it's looking long-term and short-term future for Arsenal. It's looking very, very good. And with regard to the long-term, I think Arteta's their man.